Today, we've got this exciting delivery from Morimoto. What is Morimoto? They make these really rad lights for Tacomas, and these guys, as far as I know, are not even released yet. They sent these to me to test out, and they should bolt into your 3rd gen Tacoma. This Tacoma, on the other hand, is a 2nd gen, and I'm not sure Morimoto knew that. When I installed the fiberglass on this thing to convert it from a 2nd gen Tacoma to a 3rd gen Tacoma, Tacoma Beast actually sent me these headlights that I've currently got in it. I had to cut the harnesses apart both on the truck side and the headlight side, figure out what does what, splice it together, and then mount those guys in there. Which means I'm gonna have to do the same thing on these shiny new Morimotos. So before we go any further, I gotta go find a battery and start testing out all of the wires and pins in here to see what does what, so I know what to tie it into on the truck side. Inside the box, you'll have your headlights, obviously, but also the 3rd generation Tacoma came with a few different styles of headlights, so they give you different harnesses depending on your application. So everything should be plug and play if you're going into a 3rd generation Tacoma, unlike me. You'll see this same plug that goes into the Morimoto headlight right here on every single one of those harnesses, and then on one of these various pigtails here, this end will plug into your stock harness and make it plug and play. But I think in my application, I'm going to use this harness here because everything is separate on its own plug, so I can probably safely assume what is turn signal, what is high beams, what is low beams, etc. I think starting with this guy. So every single one of these plugs has a black wire in it, so I think it's safe to assume that black in this case means ground. And then I think this triple plug is high beam, low beam switch. So to test that out, I'm just gonna use the battery that's like easiest to access here on my pickup, plug this into the back of that headlight and start giving power to pins and see what they do. So we'll plug the main plug into the headlight. We have a ground and power. Oh, that was cool. Look what it's doing. We ground that pin, give power to the yellow wire. Wild. Okay, what if we get power to the middle one? Okay, middle one is just white. I know that the white wire lights it up white in like a daytime running light configuration, and the yellow wire does an orange animation, then switches to white for daytime running light. So neither of those are actually headlights. Let's try this plug. Ground, power. Ah, there we go. Now is that high beam? 1, 2, 3 lit up. So does that make this guy low beam? Low beam, okay, so that, see how it's only got 2 lit up, and that other plug had 3 lit up? I gotta start labeling things. Another thing to note, I was just looking in the box and found these resistors. So I think that plugs into, yeah, this guy right here. I don't know what it's for, but it's now plugged in. Oh, that's cool. It's got a magnetic base, so when it's inside the truck, not this truck, but when this is inside the Tacoma, oh, that's a good magnet too. So, high beam, low beam, running lights, I think. This must be turn signal? The guy appears to be doing nothing. I'm curious if on this guy, the yellow's running lights, maybe the white is turn signal, maybe? Okay. I'm getting somewhere. So here's what's gonna happen. I picked up this generic 4-pin connector and this generic 3-pin connector. And I'm essentially gonna consolidate all these into those 2 plugs. So that will go to something like that, and then inside the truck, I will wire the truck side into here, and it'll all be nice and plug and play in the future. I still don't know what this wire does because I can't get it to do anything when connected to the battery. So I'm thinking maybe it doesn't function until there's power to the headlights, like through the low beam or high beam. Since all of these have their own ground, I'll probably just combine them so that we're only using up like 1 pin slot in these connectors, or maybe I'll use 2. So now that I got a really good idea on what wire does what, I think that means it's time to pull the Tacoma up to the shop, start taking apart the front end, pull the headlights out, wire up the body side of the harnesses I just made, and then test it out. What I find that is super cool about these headlights is you can change whether they are a sequential pattern for turn signal or they're just a straight dim in and out. You can also change the color of the daytime running lights. And all you have to do to switch out that stuff, at the back of the lights, there's this plug. You'll see by factory, it's got this blue plug on it. And if you switch this out with, let's say, the black plug or the green plug that I have on that side, it'll change the functions of the headlights. So looking at the instructions, you can see the default one is this blue one that's in it, which is a white daytime running light and then a sequential turn signal. You can use a red plug and get a white daytime running light and a fading turn signal. You can use a green plug, which is an amber daytime running light, and then it has a fade off for the turn signal, which is what we have wired on this side. And then the black, which is a amber daytime running light, and the turn signal is sequential, which is what this side is doing. My old headlights didn't have an option to change this, and they were sequential from the factory. I think this time around, I'm going to do the classic just fade in, fade out, just to switch it up. So I worked until dark last night to get these things installed, and then I decided to rip it all back apart again because there's some changes that I wanted to make. So before all of the grill lights were powered by the aux beam panel, I would physically have to hit a switch in the cab to turn them on, but instead, since I'm in here wiring headlights anyways, I decided that I would just have those go to the running lights so that when the running lights are on, the grill lights are on, it's nice and easy and I'll never forget to turn them on. The other change I wanted to make is adding these bottom supports for the headlights. As I mentioned before, this is a 2nd gen to 3rd gen conversion. This uses a factory mount there, and it uses a factory mount in behind this panel here. But for the front mount, there was nothing here to mount the headlights, and before they were just really floppy. When I went over bumps, I could see the headlights kind of jumping around. So what I did was just add a mount down here. This is just a flat piece of steel that I drilled a hole in the end and then welded it to this bar here. This bottom bar came with the fiberglass kit. It is supposed to be able to support your grill and headlights, I think, and it used to have these guys welded onto it, but they used to be angled down, and when I flipped it upside down, it would be angled like this way, and in neither orientation it would line up to this mount. I just made new ones, and now the headlights are super rigid. And something else to note is last night when I installed these, I didn't put in this little trim piece. I didn't think that I had them because my previous headlights just went all the way down here and filled the void, and there was no trim piece to put in. What you're supposed to do if you're coming from stock headlights is to take this little trim piece off of your stock headlights. And I honestly didn't think that I had this trim piece. But then I realized when I first built this truck, I did buy a pair of stock 3rd gen Tacoma headlights. And I scrolled back into my pictures and realized that, hey, they had this trim piece on those. So just went through my storage, found the headlights, robbed the trim piece, and now I'm installing them where they need to go, in the headlights. Now there's one last thing that needs to be modified on these headlights to work in the 2nd gen, and that is this mount right here. I think I can just bend this down and line it up with that hole there, actually. Ah, no, it's tearing. Here we go. Goodbye. Nothing like cutting up a brand new set of headlights. Now, it'll clear the hood. Hey. What do you guys think? Are these new Morimotos a worthwhile upgrade over the old one? I think they might be. These look way better. They just go with the overall look of the truck, just this much more, which is perfect. Now to wait for it to get a little bit darker, and then we'll give these headlights a real test. All right, let's give it a shot. So this is headlights, which is crazy bright. High beams, that's so good. I didn't even touch the adjustment on these headlights out of the box, but they seem to be angled up, which makes sense. This is a big lifted truck. So that is definitely something that I'm gonna have to address before I really daily drive this thing and blind everybody.